So now you know how to pronounce Tibetan sounds and how to read the Tibetan alphabet. Now is a good opportunity to practice writing the alphabet so that you get familiar with the letters. So we're going to go through the first row. You can pause this as often as you need to, just to copy on your own sheet of paper, because it's a good idea to do this by hand at first. So the first time through, we'll look at the handwriting, and then once you're comfortable with that, you can come back and look at this again to do with the Wiley transcription and the Unicode versions. But for now, we'll just have a look at the handwriting stroke order. So this first practice is to give you an idea of how to write the characters. So you'll see there are little arrows with each letter. So this letter ka, in general, you always start with the top letter. You have to imagine that you're writing with a bamboo reed. Normally, nowadays we use ballpoint pens, so you don't have to be quite as strict, but if you were writing with a bamboo pen and doing calligraphy, then you you almost don't have a choice. You need to write it this way, otherwise it looks very strange. But if you have a ballpoint pen, you don't need to be too obsessive about it, but it's a good habit to follow this structure of writing. It's efficient also. So you just need to follow the numbers. They all go along the same line. Sometimes, sorry, my screen is not perfectly aligned just because this is in a table and I copied it from a separate image. But these should all be on a line, for example, if you're using a notebook. But just for practice, it's okay if they're not all perfectly aligned, clearly. So you start with the line, and then you have your second stroke, third stroke, and fourth stroke, and then your tsek. Then same thing for ka. You can remember, because I've got the Wiley transcription underneath here, what the pronunciation is. So again, the top line first always. Then generally speaking, you go from left to right. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your tsek. Then ka, 1 across the top. Then from the left, 2, 3, 4, 5, and your tsek. And then nga, your top line, line 2, line 3, and then your tsek. In this case, I think you'll remember from some other videos, if you've been seeing some other ones, that whenever you have a nga, you need a tsek before your she to make it clear that it's not a ka, because otherwise it looks like it might be a ka, like it's just missing something otherwise. So you put a tsek to make sure that it doesn't look like a ka. So that's the first order. So you can take your time, pause the video at this point, and what I recommend is write the first row 3 times just to practice doing the strokes. Do that on one day, do it on another day, do it on a third day. Get it into your muscle memory so that it becomes automatic. It might seem repetitive, but you will see that it becomes very natural after you do that. So 3 times every day for a few days, that lets your brain and your muscles adjust to the new patterns of writing, and you'll start to see the quality improve. So ka, 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 nga. And we're going to move on to the next screen, which is ja, cha, cha, and nya. So again, we'll walk through a little bit. Top stroke, then the 2, the 3, and then your tsek. For the cha, you have the top line. Then you do sort of a big sweeping round motion. Practice it a few times to see what works best for you. This is not easy to do either with a ballpoint pen or a reed, I suppose. So it takes a little bit of practice. But if you do with this motion, this kind of just a big circle, it will end up looking okay. You don't need to worry about too much about this little indent at the top here. Then cha, 1. It seems a little bit unnatural, but you do 1, 2, and 3, and then you connect them with the 4. Yeah, you don't need to be super strict about that. I do tend to do it that way, just calligraphically it looks a little bit better, but you can experiment a little bit. I tend to do, for the nya, I tend to do just a little head line for myself just to kind of keep my place, and then I do the 1, and then the squiggly 2, and then the 3. And in this case, you don't need to put a tek because you have a she, and this is not a nga, so you can leave it blank in between because it's the end of the line. So ja, cha, cha, nya. You can pause it now and repeat as many times as you need. Then we have da, ta, ta, na. So the first one, top line, second line, and then swoop down with the third, and your tek. Ta, you have 1 top line, a little 2. This image, they have the 3 going this way. I tend to do sort of 1, and then I do 2 all the way up here, and then I kind of go back down this way with it, because I'm using a ballpoint pen. If I were using a reed, it would be more difficult to do that way, but I tend to go this way instead for my 3. Then 4, and then 5 down this way, and then it's sec. Ta, top line, side number 2, and then a swoop down for 3. And you have to pay attention to where your tails end, because otherwise it will be difficult to tell, for example, the difference between a ta with a long tail and a nga with a short tail. And your tsek. So then na, 1 top stroke, and then a big long curve down for your na, and then your she. So you can pause and practice. And the next screen is pa, 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 ma. So pa, you start with the small line 1, then a 2, stroke down for 3, and then finish with the 4 and a tsek. Pretty easy. Pa, same idea. You start the same way. Small line for 1, down for 2, swoop down for 3, then a down with 4, and then you finish with this little squiggle in the middle for number 5, and then you have your tsek at the end. Here, then pa, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's just sort of a box almost, and then your tsek. Ma, top line, and then a curl just like you did for the na, but it doesn't go down quite as long as the na. It stops a bit shorter, and then you do a final line 3 there, and then your she. So you can pause there to practice. Then we have a za. So the way you do this is almost, I think you noticed, like the cha, except that you have this extra tail here at the end. So you have the top line, then this, it's hard to see, I guess, but the second line comes from the middle of this line and out this way, sort of just this little section here. Then you start over here and do this big 3 up this way and kind of cross above that second line. And then you finish with the number 4, the squiggle at the top, and then your tsek. Then cha, similar to the cha, you have your top line, then you have this big loop around, sort of looks like a figure 8, but if it's smooth at the top, that's okay too. And then your squiggle to make it the cha and tsek. Then you have za, top line, second line and third line, again, a little bit different, and then fourth line to connect them all, and then your squiggle to make it a za and tsek. Then the wa, you have your first line, just this little part here. I, this the way they've the image that I took has this a little bit different. I guess when you have a bamboo pen, you do it slightly different. I use a ballpoint pen more normally, so my strokes are a little bit different. Here, if you were using a reed pen, you would use one first, and then two, and then come around, and then do this other line for the top of this sort of pa looking thing. And then come down with your three and make your stroke for the bottom part here, the pa looking thing, and then your final connector line here. Because I use a ballpoint, I tend to start with my little top line. I do this line then, and then I do this, and then this, and then this. However you find it most convenient is okay. As long as it ends up looking like this, it should be okay. And then you have your she. So pause to practice. Next, we have sha, sa, ah, and ya. So top line, then this second one down the side, and then a big curve like the na, similar to the na with the long tail. Then sa, big line, same as for the others. The second one is here, third one is here, and then the fourth is the connector and the tsek. Next, top line, then come down with the two, down with the three, and then a little another, whoops, a little another squiggle with the four. Hold on, I'll go back. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and tsek. This, the ya is, I guess, it has a few more parts. They show the one at the end of this one here. So but really what you can do is you do a small headline here, 1, and then this sort of becomes 2 really. Then this is a 3, and this is a 4, and this is a 5 really, if you want to make sure you have all of your proper headlines in there. But generally speaking, it's 1, 2, 3. But if you make your headlines, then it's five strokes. And again, no need for a tsek because it's the end of the line, so you have your she. So you can pause here to practice these. Next, what you have is ra, la, sha, and sa. So ra, headline, you come down with this little 2 connector and then a sweepy 3 and a tsek. For la, your headline, the 1 stroke, then the 3rd stroke comes down like this, and then sort of a 4th stroke this way, really. I mean, you can do it as, it's 1 stroke, but in 2 parts, and then the final stroke connecting at the end there, and then your tsek. Oh, sorry, I forgot to disconnect the arrow from the tsek. Here, the sha, it doesn't really show much. I tend to do a little stabilizing top line here as well, like just a little 1, and then I do my line down here, and then this down, and then from here you go up, and then you can do your final line. So I tend to do that. I just do a straight headline, a small straight headline, and then down with this, and then 3. And then I do this up this way. But like I say, if you can do it the other way, if you can manage with your pen to do this over the top and then underneath and then down this way, I guess it depends where you start, but I find it easiest when I'm using a pen to just start with a little headline here and then come down and do these afterwards. And then your tsek, you have a top line, then down this way, and again for the 2, then this bigger, well, not terribly long line for the 3, and the final line of the 4, no tsek, and then the she. So you can pause here to practice. And the last two, ha, ah. So for ha, you have your headline, 2 down this way, then 3 over this way, and then 4. It looks fancy, but it's not that difficult. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Might take you a little bit of practice to get the right angle for this hoop here. And then a tick. And then your ah. Ah, you start in the middle. You give your beginning headline here, this middle one. Then you can come down here. I tend to do this. Here they do sort of a fancy tail here. That's with a ballpoint pen, you probably won't notice a difference. Just have it be regular. It doesn't need a fancy top like that. Then 3 and 4 to finish. And then your she. So you can pause to practice. And what I would say is when you get to the end of practicing it and you're comfortable with doing the handwriting, I'm going to make some videos for you to practice doing the Wiley letters as well. So those will be just a question of recognizing them, but just start to be familiar with the look of this alphabet. I will bring it back for some Wiley exercises and some Unicode Windows keyboard typing exercises. And thinking maybe eventually we'll do some SMS like phone keyboard drills as well, just to give people lots of different ways to practice writing their Tibetan. So thank you, and watch as many times as you need to for this one because, like I say, it's just good to get this into your muscle memory. It's very helpful when you need to be taking notes.